instead of sanctioning Russia, instead of threatening war with China over Taiwan, instead of doing all these stupid things, you could be a good neighbor. You could be the deal maker you always claim to be. Why don't you do that? Nobody voted for more war. Nobody voted for you to put sanctions on India or Russia or China. Come see me on tour in Appleton, Wisconsin, Rosemont, Illinois, Chicago, Illinois, Louisville, Fort Wayne, Hermosa Beach, Sacramento, San Francisco, Irvine. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. So I hate to say this, but Trump is blowing it. Right now, the world is uniting and against the United States because, as I've warned people, you don't want to weaponize the dollar, meaning you don't want to keep putting sanctions on countries because the United States dollar is the reserve currency of the world. And so that allows us to do things like sanctions. And people are now revolting against it. And there's a thing called BRICS, right? So that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and like 20 or 30 other countries are coming together. They're going to try and find ways to push back against the United States over trade and our dollar being the reserve currency, and it's happening. So they kept saying, we're going to isolate Putin. We're going to isolate Putin. That's what Joe Biden said. We're going to isolate Putin. That's what, smiles and clasped hands as Xi, Putin, and Modi try to signal unity. Their display of friendship in China was aimed at projecting an alternative to United States global leadership, even as serious differences among them remain. Are there anything for this? Okay, hang on. And no, this is not the lineup for presidential candidates for the upcoming 2028 election. This is a coalition of nations who don't give a F about United States exceptionalism. That's what this is. Arnaud, our friend Arnaud Bertrand, I hope I'm saying that right. He says, remember earlier this year, all the talk about Trump trying to pull a reverse Kissinger to split Russia and China? Well, things are turning out a bit differently, aren't they? Yes, they are. So I like this guy tweets out, isolated Russia. So there's Putin right in the middle, and there's all these countries coming together. There's all the countries coming together. You know who's not there? Trump. Trump's not there. Look who is there. China's there. India's there. Russia's there. Here's what Richard said. The Western establishment and its obedient media keep spewing the same tired propaganda. Evil Putin, isolated and shunned, the great global pariah. But then you see Xi Jinping, Putin, and Kim Jong-un standing shoulder to shoulder at China's V-Day parade, and the mask slips. What you've been fed isn't truth. It's a scripted lie, fabricated to keep you misled, compliant, and swallowing their manipulative garbage without question. You want to see them? Here.
Resistance against Japanese aggression.
You can turn it down.
As well.
So there they are. Look at all. They're all hanging out. Everybody's having fun. Kim Jong-un, there's his flat top. There's his flat top or flat top. There they are. Look at all these countries coming together. 3 giant countries: India, China, Russia, and of course Kim Jong-un, because he's got a nuke. So that's what makes him special. And if you want to join, so I mean that's a huge crowd. And if you want to join the huge crowd giving me a standing ovation for my hilarious new comedy material, be sure to come down to Appleton, Wisconsin, Chicago, Rosemont, Illinois, Fort Wayne, Louisville, Hermosa Beach, Sacramento, San Francisco. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. So, General Mike Flynn. Now, you remember General Mike Flynn. He knows where all the bodies were buried, which is why the FBI entrapped him in the first days of Trump's first administration. They entrapped him. He says this: Putin doesn't look very isolated here whatsoever. I honestly am at a loss for words to say about this losing war in Ukraine. All the brilliant neocon and geopolitical advisors pushing Donald Trump to do the exact opposite of what he should be doing are going to drive America into a war we don't need, a war we cannot afford, and a war that could end very badly for the entire world. If the European Union wants this mess, let them have it. Ukraine has already lost over 1.5 million in the past 3 years alone. Ukraine has lost 1.5 million people in this war that didn't have to happen. And there was a peace deal a month after it started that NATO and the United States broke, made sure it didn't happen. Ukraine has already lost 1.5 million people in the past 3 years alone. More killing, more dying, more spending, more hard-headed arrogance on the part of European leaders will not win the day. Team America needs to find a way out of this mess, and very soon. We the people are with you. Make the right decision. So he's pointing to that. Doesn't look very isolated. And here's how the New York Times described it. It was a scene in eastern China, almost certainly intended for an audience on the other side of the world. The leaders of China, Russia, and India, the three largest powers not aligned with the West, smiling and laughing like good friends as they greeted each other at a summit on Monday. It starts with Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India and President Vladimir Putin of Russia holding hands and walking into a meeting half filled with other world leaders. They head straight for President Xi Jinping of China, shake hands, and form a close circle. A few words are exchanged before translators join in the huddle. Mr. Putin cracks a broad smile, and Mr. Modi lets out a big laugh. At one point, Mr. Modi joins hands with the two leaders. The tableau carried multiple messages, analysts said. The bonhomie between Mr. Xi and Mr. Putin was meant to convey a close bond between them as leaders of an alternative world order challenging the United States. So that's what's happening. Mr. Modi sought to show that India has other important friends, including China. Regardless of an unresolved border dispute, if the Trump administration chooses to continue alienating New Delhi with tariffs, optics is the key part of this summit, and the White House should grasp that its policies will result in other countries looking for alternatives to meet their interests, said Manjul Somebody, head of the Indo-Pacific Studies at the Takshashila Institute in Bangalore, India. Wow. That's a mouthful. So this is like high school, and we're no longer considered the cool kids anymore. That's what's happening. The imagery in the city of Tianjin, where more than 20 leaders from mostly Central Asia and South Asia gathered, showed how the geopolitical disruption caused by Mr. Trump has given China and Russia a platform to rally partners such as Iran, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Belarus, and Pakistan, and Stanistan. That's my uncle. The meeting in Tianjin and of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, a Eurasian security grouping of 10 countries led by China and Russia, showed this effort playing out. There they are. There it is. Look at how pretty this city is. It's kind of crazy how pretty it is, isn't it? Imagine if we had cities like that in the United States. Wouldn't that be nice? That's like a perfect picture of unity with an almost futuristic scape behind them. That's like, it looks like the future. But the best part is at the very pinnacle of the setting is a huge carnival Ferris wheel going around and around. That's what I like. In a joint communique, the group strongly condemned what is called the military aggression launched by Israel and the United States against Iran in June, but said nothing about Russia's war on Ukraine. Iran is also a member state. I wonder why they didn't say anything about Russia's war on Ukraine, because first of all, it started as Ukraine's war on the Donbass. That's why. And it also started when they blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. Who did that? United States. It also started with the United States overthrowing the democratically elected government of Ukraine in 2014. That's when the war started, in 2014. And, of course, the New York Times isn't going to tell you that because the New York Times is a pro-war propaganda rag. But I'll tell you that. That's why you come and watch the show. China wants to see, and I'll tell you that in my stand-up comedy act, when you come see me in Chicago, Appleton, Wisconsin, Louisville, Kentucky, Fort Wayne, you go to Hermosa Beach, Sacramento, San Francisco, go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. China wants to seize on the unpopularity of America's trade policy to drive a wedge between Washington and the rest of the world, arguing that it can serve as a more stable global leader. I would agree with that, probably. Mr. Xi, in his opening speech, took not too subtle jabs at the United States, urging members of the group to oppose a Cold War mentality, block confrontation, and bullying. He said the organization must forge ahead amid global upheaval. Mr. Putin delivered a speech that repeated his claims about the West being at fault for his country's war in Ukraine. You know why? Because that's true. It is the West's fault. It's the United States' fault in particular. We did that. We caused that war. He also praised a recent summit he had with President Trump in Alaska to discuss the conflict and said that he had already briefed Mr. Xi about those talks in detail, comments seeming to signal China's central role in Russia's diplomatic calculus. Mr. Modi, for his part, spoke of promoting multilateralism and an inclusive world order. In other words, a system in which countries like India had a greater say in global affairs. The three-way hand-holding between Mr. Modi, Putin, and Xi was nothing short of the smiling manifestation of a troika that Moscow had recently said it hoped to revive. Look up, what is troika? What is a troika? In the past, India's risk-averse bureaucracy would have taken pains to avoid such overt displays of warmth with China and Russia at sensitive junctures, the secret to expanding ties with Washington while keeping a seat at forums led by other major powers. See, they used to be afraid. India used to be afraid. They're not anymore because Trump is going to tariff the hell out of them. Mr. Trump's barrage of tariffs on India, now at 50% after penalizing India for buying Russian oil, has left little incentive for India to worry about the United States. They don't care anymore. What's a troika?
A group of three powerful politicians or states as a troika.
Oh, okay. The summit, which ends Monday, I guess that was yesterday, is the first part of a diplomatic showcase that Mr. Xi has lined up this week. In the lead up to this meeting, he has held talks with many of the visiting leaders, including Mr. Modi, during which he said that the two countries should see each other as partners and not as rivals. He's also expected to hold talks with Mr. Putin. But the biggest highlight is a military parade in Beijing on Wednesday aimed at commemorating the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II, to be attended by Mr. Putin and Kim Jong-un, the North Korean dictator. Oh, yeah? You want to see some of that? That's got to be an awkward feeling, being North Korea and being invited to celebrate the end of World War II. Realizing you're just next up on the roster. But here it is. You want to see it? You can play the music, I guess. Say what you want. Those Chinese know how to march in unison. That kind of marching looks like it would hurt your knees. Doesn't it look like it would hurt your knees? Mr. Xi has tried to recast China's role in the war to burnish the Communist Party's image and buttress its claims over Taiwan and the South China Sea, scholars have said. Xi Jinping clearly wants to challenge the post-World War II global order dominated by the United States and show that China is a reliable and legitimate alternative. There it is, just in. President Trump says he's very disappointed in Russian President Putin. Oh, really? Well, everyone else is disappointed in that you're letting this happen. That's what I would say. So here's what Trump says. The big question to be answered is whether or not President Xi of China will mention the massive amount of support and blood that the United States of America gave to China in order to help it secure its freedom from a very unfriendly foreign invader. Many Americans died in China's quest for victory and glory. I hope that they are rightfully honored and remembered for their bravery and sacrifice. May President Xi and the wonderful people of China have a great and lasting day of celebration. Please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America. Well, if you were there, they wouldn't be doing that. If you were actually, instead of sanctioning India for buying oil from Russia, instead of sanctioning Russia, instead of threatening war with China over Taiwan, instead of doing all these stupid things, you could be a good neighbor. You could be the deal maker you always claimed to be. Why don't you do that? Nobody voted for more war. Nobody voted for you to put sanctions on India or Russia or China. Anyway, there it is. Our grip is slipping. The United States grip on world power is slipping, and that's the perfect example of it. And we don't know what else to do because we're not really run by Donald Trump doesn't really run the foreign policy. That's the problem. He has bosses. Obviously, he has bosses. Benjamin Netanyahu being one of them. And the military-industrial complex and the donor class. Those are his bosses. And that's why I should have had that loaded in all the military bases around the world by the United States. And that's why we're spending. Dave Smith makes a perfect point about this. The reason why your kids can't afford a house is because we have to pay for the Iraq War. We have to pay for this Libya war. We have to pay for the Afghanistan war. We have to pay for the Ukraine war and the Syrian war. And why is that? Well, because they didn't tax you to pay for those things. They just printed the money. And when they print the money, it devalues the money. So now the dollar that was worth whatever it was worth in 2001, and now we printed all those trillions of dollars to pay for those wars, devalues the dollar. So now everything is more expensive. Not because they're actually worth more, but because your dollar's worth less. So now it costs $500,000 to $1 million to buy a home that should be worth $150,000, which is why your kids can't afford a house. And people don't put that together. I saw Dave Smith talk about that on Joe Rogan, and it was a great point. I had never thought about it until he put it that way. But of course, we talk about money printing all the time and how the dollar isn't worth what it was 25 years ago. It's worth a pittance, a fraction of what it was. And that's why housing prices are through the roof, because they keep printing money. Houses that was worth $1 million 5 years ago are now worth $3 million. I saw it already on Zillow the other day. I was looking at houses. Houses that sold for $1 million in 2019 are now listed at $3 million. That's not because those houses got more value. That's because the dollar depreciated in value. And that's because they had to print that money to pay for those wars. Hey, 2 banks have already failed in 2025, and with $37 trillion in national debt, more failures are on the way. This isn't fear-mongering, it's reality. The banking system is built on quicksand, and every new failure threatens depositors, retirement accounts, and pensions. The government can't bail out everyone, and when confidence collapses, so does the system. Don't get trapped holding worthless paper. Visit JimmyLovesGold.com or call 800-476-7790 today and secure your wealth with real assets that don't depend on politicians or banks. Come see me on tour in Appleton, Wisconsin, Rosemont, Illinois, Chicago, Illinois, Louisville, Fort Wayne, Hermosa Beach, Sacramento, San Francisco, Irvine. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.